I turned my favorite artist into Pokemon cards, and today I'm going to show you how I did it.
Dreadlabs.
What's going on everyone, my name is Tom from Dreadlabs and I'm a visual artist and graphic designer. Last year I traveled through Japan for 5 weeks and during this time I rekindled my old love for Pokemon cards. I'm a huge fan of art prints and collectibles, and since Pokemon cards are way cheaper in Japan compared to here in the Netherlands, it was only a matter of time before I super focused on this hobby. Anyways, this inspired me to create Pokemon cards based off of my favorite music artists. I designed them and I printed them myself, which was insanely fun to do. As a graphic designer, seeing your work as prints isn't as common anymore compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So it's nice to see your work ending in the physical space for a change. Like these. Okay, I'm done yapping, so let's dive straight into the process video. To start this project, I measured my Pokemon cards. Not just the full length and width, but also the position of the art window, as well as the parts on the interface. I recreated this in Adobe Illustrator, but I added my own twist to it a little bit. Custom fonts and custom icons, stuff like that, you know? I decided that I want to put Childish Gambino, Joji, Aphex Twin, Skrillex, Mall Grab, and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard on my first 6 cards. I've written down some aspects that I wanted to put on the cards themselves. Their monthly listeners, or listener points, a fitting icon where the energies are supposed to be, some aspects that I would use to describe their music, for example experimental, atmospheric, groovy, energetic, playful, stuff like that. Their most famous song, my personal favorite song, my album recommendation, a short description of the artist, credit to the photographer if needed, another artist I think they should collaborate with, and of course the artwork. At first I picked photos of each artist to use and call it a day, but in reality I only liked this concept for Joji and Skrillex. Something that I wanted to force myself more this year is to take my time to finish videos and projects rather than rush them and put them onto the internet. So I went back to the drawing board and decided that I wanted to design some of these cards in their unique style. Let's go over them one by one. I started with Childish Gambino. For this one I wanted to do a vintage comic book style that I've showcased years ago on my channel. I think this fits the aesthetic of his latest album Bando Stone in the New World. I traced over the original artwork to draw Bino and placed him over a background I drew years ago during Creatober in 2021. The next challenge was turning this into a Pokemon card. I didn't want all of the cards to be full art cards, so I tried to do something in between where I'd have the background of the art blend into the frame of the card itself. That way you can still make out the temple if you look close enough, but it still mainly looks like a Pokemon card. I guess. Next up was Mall Grab. Yeah, I was just randomly picking my next one instead of going from the left to the right. Anyways, with this card I had the most difficulty with. I wanted to design his card in the style of Supergook, which is an amazing artist that he often works with. Problem is that I wanted to use stipple shading in this art, and the art of this card is really small. Retrospectively, I probably should have just made this into a full art as well. Anyways, I wanted to use the dogs on his album cover from What I Breathe, but in a Supergook way. I ended up creating these metallic dog chains in Cinema 4D and I layered them with his photo from the album shoot. I liked the composition, but I struggled with leaving everything in one color or not, as well as the size of the stipples. Not my best work here, but I learned a lot during the process. Let's move on to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. For this art, I wanted to do something inspired by one of my all-time favorite artists, Jason Galea. I could create a full podcast episode fangirling over his work, but for now I'll just say that he makes these amazing illustrations for the band. Some of them are really dark and detailed, and some of them are fun and lighthearted. These lighthearted ones often feature a couple of crocodiles. I sketched out this idea of the band members as crocodiles trying to escape a giant cauldron that's being cooked by a large chameleon or gecko. I inked the sketch into Photoshop, but I felt like I butchered the chameleon at the top. That's why I, again, decided to take my time and redo my sketch on my iPad with a flaming chameleon at the bottom and the top reptile just out of frame. In the end I was actually really happy with the end result and I really loved the colorways on this. And I love how cute the crocodiles look. I just don't think it's up to standard with Jason Galea's work, but I hope it can serve as a humble tribute to his work. The final card that I changed up was the card for Aphex Twin. It felt weird just to show his normal face on the card, so I decided to do something with his iconic grin. While experimenting, I tried to use the work I made during my Creatober 2023 entry, where I also worked with his grin, but it felt a little bit too unrecognizable. That's when I remembered that some of the future Paradox Pokemon have this sick black halftone gradient on the right of the card, which inspired me to simply put something similar to that on the background of this card. I added a halftone filter, singled out a red layer, and placed it into the card background. I also figured that the artwork to his black box live recorder would fit the rest of the card better than a photo, considering that his iconic logo is on there and the colorways also kinda match. I also designed a backprint for the cards. I wanted to combine the iconic backs of Yu-Gi-Oh cards and the Pokemon cards into one, since these cards played a huge role in my childhood. I would want the composition to look a little bit more like the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and the blue colors would be an homage to the Pokemon cards with my logo in the middle. After some tinkering with Photoshop filters, the backs were ready to go. I printed these cards at home on my crappy HP printer. I used photo paper for a glossy look. Since my printer doesn't do double-sided printing very well, I decided to just print the backs on a different piece of paper. The glossy layer wasn't double-sided anyway, and this way the cards would be a little bit thicker too. Next up, I grabbed this holographic sheet of paper and layered it on top of the cards. I really like this effect, but it was just a little bit too foggy. As you can see, there's an extra film layer on the cards now. Perhaps next time I'll just print my design onto holographic paper. Anyways, once the layer was placed, I removed any air bubbles with a ruler and started the cutting process. At first, I did some raw cuts before I placed my paper precisely on the edge to create perfect cuts. Looking back, I probably should have made the margin of the edges a little bit larger here, and you'll see why in just a minute. I was happy that I was smart enough to place the hollow paper on first before cutting, because this proved to be quite effective. I did the same for the backs of the cards, but this is where I came across a difficulty: gluing the cards together. I recently started doing Pokemon 3D cards where I use Mod Podge for this, so I figured this would help gluing these cards together as well. The thing is that it didn't stick very well at first because I think it dried really quickly, and because I card each card and back individually, the margins sometimes didn't line up perfectly when gluing the cards together. Once the cards and their back were actually stuck together, I did another cut on each edge to remove any overlapping edges. Because of this, some of the cards have an extremely small margin line, which could have been prevented if I just made larger margins in the first place. Anyways, finally I used a hobby knife to create roundings on the corners, and that was it. My first batch of handmade Pokemon cards. This was insanely fun to do. I got to do graphic design, 3D, a bit of crafts and even some illustration work. It was also really cool to have the end result of your design project getting straight into your hand like this, compared to when most of my posters or animations basically just catch dust on a hard drive. It was a bit difficult though, designing stuff inspired by my favorite designers. I am nowhere near as good as them when it comes to their craft, and sometimes it felt a little bit like I was insulting them when I was creating this video. I wanted to share this video on the internet regardless, because I learned a lot of valuable things that I want to share with you at the end of this video. The first lesson is never stop creating. Even though I was super busy with client work, I still managed to squeeze in time for this project. So even if you're not creating something in your day job, take some time out of your day to create something. It doesn't have to be Pokemon cards, draw something, I don't know, make collages, do something. It really is therapeutic. And the second lesson I learned during this project is take your time to create. Nowadays, everyone seems to create stuff just to share it on the internet, and I'm not really an exception. Most of what I do and what I create is to either share on the Dreadlabs platform in the video format that you're watching right now, or simply to gain new clients as a freelance graphic designer. And of course it feels a little bit paradoxical to say this since I'm actually sharing this video on the Dreadlabs channel too. But I want to emphasize that this video took me months to finish. The main reason for that being that I took my time when I was creating these cards. I was a little bit more critical of my work, and I was patient, and I took my time to redo sketches. In some cases I decided to redesign the whole card instead of me being just like, it's for content purposes, I need this finished ASAP, and dumping it on the internet straight away. I definitely did this in the past on my channel, Looking at You, that one video where I redesigned the ketchup bottle, and those aren't projects that I look back on proudly. I was tired and stressed when I created it because I had a time limit for myself and I rushed it. During this project, I took my time, I was patient, and I definitely have fun with it. Anyways, if you want to get the project files for these cards, so the Illustrator files, Photoshop files, the 3D files for Mall Grab, all of that good stuff, you can find those on my Patreon channel. By subscribing for just $5 a month, you'll get access to all of the project files from all of my tutorial videos on this channel. At this point, that's over 100 project files, maybe even more, maybe even 200? Not sure. Since this was an insanely large project, I decided to upload this specific project for the upper tier patrons, which is $10 a month. In this tier, you'll also get access to the Creatober design files and even some exclusive tutorial. If you don't want to subscribe forever, you can simply just pay for 1 month and then unsubscribe immediately, and you'll get access to the files from this video anyway. No hard feelings. I really do hope that you feel inspired after watching this video. Maybe you'll even start designing your own Pokemon cards based on your favorite artists, which I'm curious to hear about in the comments if you want to share it with me. Anyways, as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I am Tom from Dreadlabs signing off, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Dreadlabs.